Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Welcome to the show, the one and only, the crypto genius, Sinclair. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Max.
You know your first name now, like Madonna. You're just Sinclair.
Man, look, I'm with whatever you call me. I'm gonna
Sinclair Skinner of BitMari. He's also at the Black Blockchain Summit. The Black Blockchain Summit.
I've been
it's coming
summoned.
up.
Yes,
what
let's
is
do
it
it
all about?
Look, we're trying to take this amazing technology and solve some long existing problems in the black communities. And we think this is a great way to do it. So we're gonna have subject matter experts in some of these particular topics, be it education, dealing with energy, as well as having folks who are well-versed in blockchain technology. We're gonna put them together, discuss these issues, try to come up with some, actions, that we can take from there. And then we're gonna have a hackathon from that point until November, and then we're going to take all that energy from the hackathons, and hopefully next year we would have done something better. And we're not going to just have a meeting after a meeting to meet. We're going to actually do like they did with the Declaration of Independence. They went out and started shooting folks. So after we do our meeting...
What? You're going to go out and shoot people?
Well, no, I'm just saying...
What kind of...
No.
Well, this is the conference. I'm going. I'm speaking. Any conference that finishes it up and you go out and shoot people, I'm in. That sounds good.
No, the Declaration of Independence was a huge deal, not because of the meeting, but because of what they did after they declared independence. They went out there and started getting at the British.
Shooting like shooting a film?
Well, no.
Not like actually shooting people with guns.
So we're not going to shoot anybody. We're
Right.
going to use technology. We think that's better than politics. We think it's better than protesting. We even think it's better than philanthropy. We think
okay, this is good. Let me focus on this for a second.
Yes,
so, the black struggle in America. You think, and your position is that technology is another rail that offers emancipation, not to be too, fine a point on it. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. It could be an underground railroad or just another rail. Absolutely.
It's in dire need. Racism, tell me if I'm wrong. Racism is as prevalent in American society today as it's ever been.
Right. It's systemic. It is actually something as a part of the fabric. And we need to do something to change it. I think technology, waiting for someone to come save us is not going to work. So
right.
It's self-determination.
Jim Crow's gone, but the prison-industrial complex
is amazing.
Is here.
And it's our generation who's actually felt it the most. Like coming of age in the 80s, you think about it, prior to that, there wasn't a lot of prison population, but we got hit with all these other things, and next thing you know, we're in an even worse situation. So I think it's time for us to use technology, waiting for, the cult of personality of people that we love as in political office, like Obama, or people that people hate, like a Trump. That's not a political strategy. We need to use technology and not get caught up in these distractions. I'm not saying politics is a distraction, but anyway.
Okay, so Satoshi is black. That's
yes.
the T-shirt.
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about that.
What are you talking about? Max, it was your idea.
Oops.
What are you talking about, Max? So I wouldn't even be in this space.
You want to ask me that question?
What is this about? What is Satoshi is black about, Max? Tell me.
Well, I'm telling you what I think it's about. I think it's about, liberation and the fact that this technology of blockchain and Bitcoin is offering a way forward from our constrictions and our restrictions and our chains in a lot of ways. Racism hurts everybody.
Go ahead,
Not just the victims of racism that are outright victims, but it hurts everybody. And this country has either been, built on a cemetery of indigenous population and then made possible through slavery. That was the economic innovation of previous centuries was slavery. That was the blockchain. They were on the chain gang. There was a freaking chain of people. That's how America got wealthy, right? So
yes, sir.
Now, we're all black in that sense. When they bring in censorship now, and when they bring in wholesale kind of censorship on the internet, that's intolerable. We're back. We're all fighting the same fight now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was Lonnie Guinier. She talked about when you look at victims of racism as canaries in a what is it?
Coal mine.
In the coal mine. So because of this racial environment, it's not the canary that's at fault, but their respiratory system is more sensitive because of the things going on. But that gas will kill everybody. So I think what you just said does directly relates to the fact that many of the things we've seen from drugs being put in communities and the military-industrial complex, it may start off with one population, but it affects
Okay,
all.
let me ask you this question. Everyone's familiar with the crackhead and the nodder, not nodding in the hood, and there's a degenerate. Look at that man, he's on heroin. Okay. Now, in the white community, they say, "Oh, we have an opiate crisis."
Right.
Right?
No, so my brother is a couple years older than me, and he's been on drugs for most of his adult life. And he's talked about how the prisons changed. He said when he first got in the late 80s,
Yeah.
it was very punitive. He said now they got so many little programs for folks to kind of like feel good about themselves and kind of like.
But how come white people have an opiate crisis and they're microdosing?
Right, microdose.
But black people are strung out on heroin
Right.
and they're crackheads.
Animals.
Right? What?
So that's the same. Again, there's a way you practice on one population. Now it leads to the other population. Even if we were talking about slavery, it's hard to compete for fair wages when you got one population that can be owned by one, and yet you're over here trying to figure out how do I get good wages.
So the pharmaceutical companies are responsible for the opiate crisis. They ran out of people in the ghetto to mess up. They had to go jump over to the white population to make money because they already messed up the black population pretty bad. So they got to jump over to the white population. That's why we're all in the hood. We're all black, essentially. Satoshi is black. Now, talk about technology. Let's talk about this. So the technology there's two schools of thought. One is we heard Safdien talk about his book, the Bitcoin Standard, and it's a very Western approach to money, hard money, and why Bitcoin is a better source of money. But when I talk to you, you come to it from a slightly different angle of there's a spiritual element to this that goes way back before America, way before Western cultures. It goes back thousands of years, maybe even 500,000 years, that there's something more critical at stake here. There's an essence here. There's a spiritual quality to it. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think what we've seen a lot of these economists, even in the blockchain space, their context of what civilization starts in a very late stage. And even when you hear Elon Musk talk about first principles, when we're looking at the conditions in the world, to start just 100 years ago or 200 years ago in America, or even 500 years ago, that's still very recent. I mean, we've been civilized people for thousands of years. And what existed before that, European and so-called Western culture is very late, is very young. So there's been cultures in Africa, we still can't build pyramids. So even when people talk about technical innovation, we still can't build a pyramid, and they have them in Mexico and they have them in Africa.
So if blockchain and Bitcoin is the perfect money, we all say it is, and if it disenfranchises central banks and it puts fiat money out of business, and it takes us back as a culture and as a civilization to before we had that Western notion of money, aren't we all the way going back to our African roots, essentially? Like Bitcoin could take us back to Africa, all of us, the entire species of humanity, of humans, back to something that is primordial.
Not even primordial, but something that's more humane, more human. And that whole humanity comes out of a spiritual space. It's not the other way around. And I think that spiritual space allows us to exchange value in a way that's more than just transactional. There's something else. There's an energy. There's something more to it. You see many of these analysis, they leave that energy out as if these all are just a series of transactions. There's more to how we got where we are now than just saying that we're transacting.
Because, okay, listen to Safdien, and he talks about economics started with scarcity. But when you talk to you and others who take it back spiritually thousands and thousands of years, actually the economics was defined by abundance.
Absolutely, abundance. So again, people even talk about the people of the sun, the ice people, but at the end of the day, if you look at many parts of the world, people didn't have to worry about winter coming and running around being afraid that somehow something wasn't going to be there. If you look at Europe and some of these other cultures, there was a real sense of scarcity that made people maybe even more confrontational. If we look at many parts of the world where people were able to...
Because they left the motherland, right? I mean, these folks, they left Africa, which was abundant, to go search for something else outside of the Garden of Eden. Not only did they lose their color, but they started thinking about everything in terms of scarcity. And they were already living in the Garden of Eden, right? So Satoshi is black.
Here.
If he's successful, we'll go back to Eden, which is frickin' Africa.
Thank you. And I think if we all start changing that mindset, we can create that space no matter where we are. And I think that's what becomes very amazing about the global power of this technology. It doesn't have a jurisdiction. We all can start creating community beyond these artificial fake borders that never were very helpful anyway. And if you think about it, we start talking about, decentralization. In Africa, they still were 2,000 languages. Africa was already decentralized. It wasn't until the colonizer came and carved up spaces that had nothing to do with actually creating a better space, but it was actually done to subdue people. So I think we can get to that space now, not just with the internet, but actually with this next layer with transactions and being an exchange value in a very powerful way through the blockchain.
Lightning Network.
Again,
Second layer.
Second layer. We're doing Lightning right now. We did our first.
BitMari?
Yes, we did our first remittance transaction from a node in Nigeria to a node in Zimbabwe back in March.
So tell people what BitMari is.
So BitMari is a Pan-African blockchain wallet. We hold Bitcoin Cash, and we're going to be coming up with some additional services. And one of the big things that we've been doing is allowing people to cash out of crypto in Zimbabwe. We have a bank partner called AgriBank that we've been working with that allows people to cash out. And we're now expanding to other African countries. One of the big things is dealing with regulators. One area might not be as warm as the other, but if we have an expansive offering, we can be in multiple African countries. And our target is trying to decolonize. At the end of the day, Barclays and a lot of these banks made their money off exploiting us. We don't need them anymore. We actually can exchange value peer-to-peer and use this amazing technology.
Well, we know the blockchain technology and the peer-to-peer applications are exploding in Africa. Probably it's the most adoptive place in the world. Is it probably because there's just already a natural tendency to think in this way?
Yeah, I think it's a natural tendency, but the problem with most of these developing countries, though, is not the local people. Most of these African countries, as well as Latin America, are still neo-colonial states where they still look to the West for approval. So if you're a banker in Africa and you're trying to do business in Europe, you're still going to, unfortunately, be manipulated by the SWIFT bank or the other systems that are out there. So I think this is a great opportunity, though, to use technology to change it.
Okay, so it's Blockchain Summit.
September 10th and 11th. Howard University, historic Howard University, historically black college, amazing place in D.C.
I'm speaking.
Hey, thank you, Max, for speaking.
Yeah, we're going to have fun.
And thank you for Satoshi is Black.
Fair enough. Thanks for being on the Keiser Report.
Yes,
Black
sir.
Power.
Black Power.
I'm proud.
I'm proud.
And I'm black.
All right, look, man. That was the only part that got weird with me. When he kept saying he was black, I was like,
I gotta say goodbye,
I said,
Max.
Come on. I'm sorry.
I gotta sign off.
Oh, sorry.
Sinclair,
Okay.
calm down.
Sorry,
Let me get down. Let me get through with this thing. Hey, we gotta go. And that's gonna do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I want to thank our guest, Sinclair Skinner of BitMari. If you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.